Over the past few months, I've realized that any car I've had, any interior mod I've done is just trash. It's just kind of gross. So I want to discuss a way I think I can step my game up, and I want to show you guys how to do it. Over the past few months, I've been diving into my Subaru Baja project. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to plug this real quick. Go up to this corner and I'm going to have a playlist there. You can see all of my updates with this project. It's something I took on almost exactly a year ago to this day, and this is an old Baja I got, rusted out. There's stuff wrong with it. Fixed it up. I'm currently fixing it up. I don't even have it on the road yet. It's a cool project. I'm building it out for light overlanding or light off-roading. I'm essentially going to take it camping on the state forest and stuff like that. But anyways, go check it out. I'm not really going to talk about that much in this video, but I am going to talk about hydro dipping, and that's what the topic of this video is. But I'm getting to the point in this project where the interior is almost ready to go back together. But I was sitting and looking at the trim pieces and I was like, man, there's got to be something I can do to make the trim pieces look better. It's just a simple silver that is on all these Subarus of this era, and I wasn't really a big fan of it. But I thought back to about 6 years ago where I got my first car. It was hit in the back, it was totaled. Me and my dad fixed it up, and I found this thing called hydro dipping. I would take the trim pieces from my car, I would dip them in this film, and then I would clear coat them, and it would look like, I don't know, a vinyl wrap or something like that. At that time, I got carbon fiber, and, well, I should say carbon fiber. And I was in a phase where I would literally just hydro dip everything. So I did a lot of hydro dipping in that time. But at the end of the day, I was like, I wasn't really happy with it. The carbon fiber didn't look real. It just, I don't know, it was alright. But recently I started doing more research on it and I found some really cool films. And that's honestly what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the process and also the pros and cons of doing hydro dipping and also how it turns out. And finally, after all my research, I landed on a Black Ops 2 topographic map. And the reason I picked that is because honestly, there's not really many options out there for topographic. And this was the only one I really like the style of. And you can see here I have two pieces. This is one of the door controls for the driver's side, and here's like the radio trim piece. And I have a lot more trim pieces that you'll see out the course of this video. But essentially what this is I painted these trim pieces black. So I sanded them down, painted them black, and then I prepped them. So I wiped them down, and then I dipped them in hydro dip. And that's the process I'm going to talk about today, about the process of hydro dipping. I did not get any of these perfect, by the way. And I think when you start out, you should not expect to ever get one perfect. Hydro dip is extremely fragile, and it is really hard to really get the hang of it. And back when I was doing it a lot, when I was, I don't know, 14 or 15, I started to get the hang of it, but after not doing it for that long, I really had to relearn. And so none of these pieces are perfect, I should say, but a lot of people won't really notice. And it's not cringy. The design itself just looks really clean, and I like the look of it. But real quick, I'm just gonna discuss the process of hydro dipping. So like I said, painted them black, wiped them down, and it was ready for hydro dip. And at this point, I took my massive roll of hydro dip film, laid it out, and I put the piece down and cut, I don't know, a rectangle around it. And I would maybe add maybe an inch or two on the ends. If you're beginning, I would add a little bit more than that. But added an inch or two around the ends, and I taped it. And taping it is actually extremely important. When you put it in the film and you put the solution on it, it starts to dissolve. And if it dissolves too fast, it'll kind of just float everywhere. And at that point, you have to basically cancel your dip, don't dip, and redo it. But, so the tape is super important. I learned that by accident. Obviously, I used to just cut it and put it in. That was a mess. And along with taping the edges of the vinyl wrap, I also like to make a box inside of the container to contain it, because sometimes it'll just kind of float around. So I usually make a box out of tape, and it stays pretty well in there. So then grab that piece and put that in warm water. And what I used for my water container was just a big old bin, and I filled it with, I don't know, a few gallons of warm water. You don't really have to fill that much. I just had to, because some of my pieces like this were big, and I actually didn't need the full piece hydro dipped, but obviously you need the full piece in the dip, or in the water, I should say, when you're dipping it. So that kind of hinders that process. And I'll usually sit there and kind of get the folds, you know, pull it out, because sometimes you put it down and there's like a little kind of folds on top of each other. You don't want that. That's gonna mess up your dip. And I'm gonna back up actually for 1 second. I missed something. So one thing you can do to check which side of the film goes down on the water, you're gonna wanna take your hand and get some water on it and just kind of rub both sides of the film on like a corner. And there's gonna be a sticky side. There's gonna be a side that sticks to your finger because it's wet. You're gonna put that side down on the water. So once I do that, put it on the water, obviously get the little wrinkles out or whatever. I kind of make it stretched out so it's good. And then you're gonna wanna take your container of like Hydrodip activator that you bought. So they call it a whole bunch of different things, but essentially to me, what it seems like is a reducer. So if you're into painting cars or painting anything, there's something called a reducer, and it has this distinct smell, I would say. And this kind of smells like reducer, and I believe I actually used reducer one time and it worked. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's kind of the same as reducer. You basically spray that on the vinyl, or I keep saying vinyl, the Hydrodip film, and it melts it down, it breaks it down so you can actually apply it to whatever object you want to apply it to. But essentially you spray that on, and I usually wait, it depends how much you spray on. So I like to do 2 passes with it, full passes. And obviously you can't blow too hard with air, or else you will just break apart the film and destroy it. And I've done that a few times as well. But after you kind of saturate that film, you'll kind of want to wait, I don't know, 20 to 30 seconds. And again, this depends how much you put on. If you put a lot on, which I've done a few times during this process, I put too much on, and I had like 10 seconds and it started breaking apart. So it got kind of bad and I had to redo it. But I would say wait till you can kind of tell that it's just totally, I don't know, broken down. You can kind of touch the edge and your finger will just kind of sink through. It's like a really thin film at that point. It's just broken down. Then you want to take your object, obviously keep your fingers off of the object face or anything that you don't want to get messed up. And you'll just kind of slowly dip it down from one corner and go to the other. And as you push down, just kind of keep going through. Don't just stay at the top, just kind of keep going down. Because if you stay at the top, it's gonna start collecting more film, and you'll see how much of a mess that is, because it starts folding on top of each other, and it just kind of looks bad in the end, and it just doesn't look like it should, essentially. And honestly, the film handles the contours very well. Now, you won't be able to see it much here, but there's little inlets here, you know, where the switches go and your fingers go down in. It handled it well. There's not really any bad mess ups that I can see. There's a few small stuff, and this piece honestly isn't a good example. I didn't do this piece very well, but it handles the contours very well. So you don't have to worry about that at all. But yeah, essentially once you push it down from one corner to the other, then you kind of just shake it around underwater, and that essentially breaks up the film up top, because if you come up through that top, which obviously you have to, you can get film back on it, and that could stay on it and ruin it. So, you know, shake it around, pull it up, and then go wash it. So I go outside and I usually just lightly rinse it. There's like this weird slimy film that's on it, and you don't really want that on to clear coat it, because that's something you should do. You should clear coat these pieces afterwards, or put some sort of protective covering on them, because the film will just come off. It will just scrape off if you just sit there and try to pick at it, and over time it will wear off. But with the clear coat, it won't do that. But yeah, essentially once you rinse it down, it just gets off that nasty, I don't even know what to call it. It's just like slime. It's kind of gross, honestly. But you get that off and you let it dry and you're good to go. So one of the first pros I love about hydrodipping is obviously the design. You can get tons of designs. There's designs out there for literally everything. There's cartoon designs. You can get, you know, simple stuff like this where it's just patterns. A lot of cool stuff. So you can find literally anything that you need for hydrodip. So that's one thing I love. The other thing is it replaces vinyl. So vinyl is another one of those things where you could find a vinyl wrap and with a cool design and do that. Vinyl wrap on trim pieces sometimes can be a pain in the butt, especially pieces like this where you have all these holes. Now, I'm not an experienced vinyl wrap guy, so I don't really know much about vinyl wrap. I'm sure there's ways to do it easier. To me, it just seems too hard for simple trim pieces like this. And the last pro is that it's simply just a fun process to do. Yes, there's times you probably will get frustrated with the process, because I know I did. There's times where I do something and I pull it up and I'm like, okay, this looks like trash. So I will either sand it down or repaint it or something like that, or just keep it. And as far as the cons go, I have one thing. You can mess it up. And that's with anything. You can mess up paint, you can mess up vinyl wrap, you can mess up everything. But there's some stuff that it's just a very fragile process and a learning curve, so you will mess something up. That is a guarantee. There's no way you'll come out of it without messing something up, or at least seeing imperfections in the process. Like this piece here, for example, it looks like at this time that I let it sit for too long with the activator on it, and it started breaking up the lines. And so you can kind of see there's broken up lines here, but most people won't notice that. And also the fact that it's a topographic map, that kind of helps because there's lines literally everywhere. But yeah, I can see here, I messed that up. And in this one here, you can see there's kind of lines through it and it kind of breaks up the pattern. So I haven't really figured this one out yet, But after a while, when I start hydro dipping, if I'm hydro dipping a lot of, objects in a bin during a day, I'll notice that after a while, the film starts to collapse on itself. Before I even spray activator sometimes, it just starts to collapse on itself. And I think what that is just the excess of activator in the water, because obviously I've been spraying activator after or before every object that whole day. So, at some point, I think it was around 8 or 9 different objects, I noticed that it started kind of folding in on itself. And at one point, I was about to go and it started, so I just quickly went, and you could definitely see it did fold in on itself. So that's not the best, but also, depending on what film you get, you might not even notice that. So that is one thing you have to keep in mind with that. But anyways, if you want to see these pieces actually installed in the vehicle, wait a few months. At the time of this video, they're not in the vehicle because I'm doing some wiring. So I would say wait, 2 months, 3 months, and I will have a full video out going over this entire build. So if you're interested in the Baja project, like I said, go check that out. You will see it at some point. And I do want to do some hydro dipping in the FJ as well. But if I missed something with hydro dipping, let me know, guys, because I am very new with this. But it's something I wanted to show you guys that's actually a lot of fun. And it's pretty cool in your vehicle because you're not just, spray painting an object and putting it back in. It's something a little bit more, ornate or interesting. So I would definitely recommend trying it out if you want. Like I said, I put my stuff in the description. Go out and look for the film that you need. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.